How can one do so much without ever getting burnt out? That's a question my friend asked me about 2 days ago. And 2 hours after that conversation, after that question, I came back with something I'm gonna call the resource flux principle. And that's just a fancy way of saying the rate of resources going in versus the rate of resources going out. Flux basically just means how fast something flows, which is basically just the rate of something. So I sat down and I thought, how can one do so much without being burnt out? Because you'll go on YouTube and you'll see guys talk about, oh, you just need purpose to your work. And it's like, yeah, but there's people who have meaningful work and they get burnt out. And there's people who have a meaningless work and they never get burnt out. So purpose and meaning and all this vague spiritual stuff, that can't be the reason for burnout. I think I have found the thing that explains burnout, the equation. And I'm not going to waste any more of your time. The equation goes, burnout occurs when the average speed of resource depletion is greater than the average speed of resource recovery. That's it. That is the equation. And it sounds like this big bunch of spiel. I'm going to explain it very simply. But first I want you to do something. Imagine two people who are identical in every single way. They have the same job, they have the same family, they even have the same willy size. I'm not even going to get into more detail than that, that's crazy. Imagine two people who are literally identical in every way. They have the exact same world, but we just change one thing. We change how efficiently they complete a task. That's all we change. Everything else stays the same. They work the same hours. They do the same activities after and before they work. Everything else is the same. We just change how efficiently they complete a task. So person A, imagine person A. He is the most inefficient guy you know. He will take as many resources as humanly possible to complete a task. So imagine he's got to do homework. He's gonna it'll be like English homework, and he'll get a calculator and a protractor. He'll just get everything. He'll waste a bunch of time. He'll waste a bunch of cognitive power, and he will drain himself emotionally. When we talk resources, we're not just talking real world stuff. We're also talking the internal, so cognitive load, emotional, obviously we're including the physical as well when we're talking about resources. What is this person A gonna be like? He's just gonna be wasteful, which is quite literally the opposite of efficiency. He is maximally inefficient. Now imagine person B. And person B is the most efficient person you know. He's literally a speedrunner for real life. You know how speedrunners in video games, they waste no time. Everything they do is with intention, and it's almost like the perfect speedrunner. So if he gets homework and he has a pencil that's this big, he'd still get the task done. If the pencil was that small, you get the idea. You get the idea. He's maximally efficient. Out of person A, the most inefficient person, maximally inefficient, and person B, who's maximally efficient, who would you expect to burn out first? Obviously person A. But why? It's because they're taking more resources to complete the same task, which is resource depletion. And the more resources person A uses, the more resources that get depleted, the more resources that have to be recovered and restored. And since he's maximally inefficient, he's most likely going to deplete resources faster than he can recover them, which will eventually lead to him burning out. Do you see how this is starting to make sense? Whereas person B, who's maximally efficient, he may never burn out at all, because he uses such little resources that the resources he depletes can be easily recovered. Easily recovered, just like that. And so person B is less likely to burn out. That's literally the equation, remember? Burnout occurs when the average speed of resource depletion is greater than the average speed of resource restoration or recovery. Albert Einstein right here. Albert Einstein right here. Now, there's a couple things that I'm gonna explain about the equation. Just like, you can click off now, that's basically it. Like, if you just want the equation, you can leave. I'm just gonna clarify a few things. The reason I say average speed is because for things like burnout, it fluctuates. So we're not exactly gonna be like at I don't know, let's say we're writing a book, we're not always going to be at like 50 words per minute. Sometimes it'll be like 1 minute, it'll be like 49, another it'll be 60. And so obviously we average it out to get like an average speed of resource depletion. I hope that makes sense. And I've just wrote some objections on the script here. So the first thing is, with this equation, you might ask, but what if the system is infinite, right? What if we have infinite resources? Well, systems with infinite resources don't burn out. Do you know what I mean? If you had infinite resources, you would never need to recover those resources. Therefore, you would never really need to recover depleted resources. You have infinite resources, you can't burn out, basically. So this equation only applies to finite systems. And I will give some examples after. But the second thing you might think is, what about if someone is motivated? What if someone feels motivation? And I thought this too. I was like, oh yeah, if someone is motivated, surely they wouldn't burn out, right? Like the equation, surely that would help recover resources. And so I asked ChatGPT, I was like, okay, what about motivation? And ChatGPT said, you may like spending money, but that doesn't increase your income. You know what I mean? Motivation itself still depletes resources, right? You may have your foot on the gas in a car all the way down. You're still burning fuel. Do you know what I mean? You may be going fast, but you're still burning fuel. You're not like filling the tank up because like, oh, I just love my work so much. Interestingly enough, if you don't understand this equation, like when you're motivated to do things, you may burn out and you may not know or realize that your motivation actually had something to do with it. However, motivation can help you if you use it correctly, in the sense that you still acknowledge that you need to recover and that you need downtime, stuff like that. When you do that, like when you're motivated and you have to think on a bigger scale, basically. So if you like, say this YouTube channel, if I'm so motivated to pop off on YouTube, I still need to take into consideration my recovery, so my sleep, what I do after I record these videos, if I'm following this equation, this principle, which is the resource flux principle. Such a cool name. Shout out ChatGPT for that name. Same thing. It's kind of the same thing if like, what if somebody loves their work? Yeah, cool. If you love your work, that's great. Hopefully you do love your work, but it still depletes resources and you can still burn out if your average speed of resource depletion is greater than your average speed of resource recovery. Now, to follow some examples, because I genuinely thought about these examples, right? And this principle, the resource flux principle, it applies to like stars, like literally stars in space, like the sun. It applies to things like that, right? And it applies to your productivity. It applies to the gym. It even applies to video games. It applies to so many things. It applies, as far as I'm aware, it applies to any system that has finite resources. So like basically all the systems on Earth you could think of. Like, so let's go. For a start, in like, I was gonna say the sky, but it's technically in space. Imagine the sun, right? Now, I'm not sure if you like studied stars and how they work and stuff, but they basically go through a process called nuclear fusion. And like, I don't know like too much about it, but you could imagine that it's using resources, so like hydrogen and stuff like that. And it's using these resources, and eventually it runs out of these resources. Like the resources, like hydrogen, they deplete, and they can't, and the sun can't recover these fast enough. And when that happens, the star collapses, and it goes into like a supernova, and then it goes into a white dwarf or a black hole, I'm pretty sure. You know, like space is cool, man. The second example is burnout itself. So burnout usually pertains to productivity and working. So imagine two people are working the same amount of hours, but one can't recover their resources fast enough, maybe because they don't sleep enough, maybe it's because they're always thinking about work, stuff like that. They'll burn out. Another one is the gym. So imagine we do a really hard workout. We like, you know what I mean? Like you can't walk, say it's like, I know I just did a chest motion and then said leg day, but you get the idea. And you're really sore, but then you do the most intelligent thing you could do and not eat anything or sleep at all. And you do that for a month. Probably sounds unlikely. Why? Because you probably burn out before then. Do you know what I'm saying? Because you just wouldn't be able to keep up with the amount of resources depleting because you haven't recovered them. Like this principle is like, it's literally the one thing, as far as I'm aware right now, as of saying this, the 17th of January 2026, this would probably be the one principle you need to keep in mind to avoid, like, to understand burnout and avoid it. Literally it. Just remember the average speed of resource depletion being greater than the average speed of resource restoration or recovery. If you do that, you'll remember, okay, I got to make sure that my resources get replenished faster than I deplete them. For example, in business, let's say the resource is money. This is a simple one because when you understand it like this, it'll make perfect sense. If we're losing more money than we're generating, we're going to be at a loss. And now you can say, oh, but like the big companies work at a loss. Let's forget the big companies for now, right? If we spend more money than we earn, we will eventually be bankrupt. We will have no money. For example, or like that's basically it, and the business will fail. Simple as that. Imagine a phone. If you're using more, imagine you have your phone plugged in, but you're using more battery than you're like charging. Your phone's gonna die eventually. No matter how small that difference is, the phone will die eventually. And what else? Video games. I did mention that. Video games. Imagine you go on like a 12-hour video game session, but you don't take breaks. You don't go and eat. You're basically like a professional streamer. Do you know what I mean? Like you just don't take breaks. You don't go outside. You don't sniff fresh air. You don't go to gym. You just play games all day. You're gonna burn out eventually. Something is going to fail. That is it. That is the one principle, the resource flux principle. If you understand that, you will be able to avoid burnout. Just remember, burnout occurs when the average speed of resource depletion is greater than the average speed of resource restoration. Safe.